It's about time we went back to the idea that we had years ago where we play some of the more asinine statements made, usually by whoever happens to be the spokes geek for whoever the president is. Now, in this particular case, of course, it's Sean Sphincter. And the problem, if it's a problem, is that every single thing that comes out of anybody's mouth in this administration is a lie. It's astonishing. It's as if Trump had a meeting or Bannon had a meeting, and he said, look, no matter what they ask you, lie. Just lie. Because then they'll chase the lie, and we can continue our deconstruction of what's left of the United States of America. Something like that had to have been said because everything that comes out of their mouths is a lie. We want to play a little sound for you. This is from today's press briefing with Sean Sphincter. You want me to read the question? I forget how we do it. No, I got the question. You got everything. All right, go ahead. Play number one.
Sean, yesterday John McCain said the president should either provide information about the allegation he put on Twitter a week ago Saturday about his phones being tapped at Trump Tower or retract the statement. Today's the deadline. What's the president going to do?
Well, let's be clear. The Department of Justice was asked to send information down to Congress. It wasn't the White House that was asked to do that. Just so we're clear as far as what the request was. I understand that, and with the tweet, hold on.
As Senator McCain said,
right.
To clear this up.
And I think if you look at the president's tweet, he said very clearly, quote, wiretapping, in quotes. There's been substantial discussion in several reports. The Brett Baer from Fox, from John's, on March 3rd, talked about evidence of wiretapping. There's been reports in the New York Times and the BBC and other outlets about other aspects of surveillance that have occurred. The president was very clear in his tweet that it was, wiretapping. That spans a whole host of surveillance types of options. The House and the Senate Intelligence Committees will now look into that and provide a report back. But I think that there has been numerous reports from a variety of outlets over the last couple months that seem to indicate that there has been different types of surveillance that occurred during the 2016 election.
All right. Where to begin? Where to begin with this bullshit? I think it was John Roberts that asked the question. And Sphincter said the Department of Justice was asked to send information down to Congress. But the Department of Justice isn't doing shit. Oh, Mumbly Peg, this ex-Klansman who runs the Justice Department, he's not going to do anything. He just said, want some more Perry does? He's not going to do anything. And as the reporter pointed out, it doesn't make any difference about the Department of Justice. The tweet came from the asshole in the White House. The tweet came from Trump. The reporter said, does the president have an obligation, as Senator McCain has said, to clear all this up? And Sphincter's answers, I've never seen quite the kind of high wire act that this asshole is playing. He said, if you look at the president's tweet, he's very clearly wiretapping in quotes. And if you were watching, he was going like this. It's like he's grabbing, like Trump said about grabbing pussy. That's exactly what Sphincter looked like, didn't he? He was going like this. This jackass doesn't know how to do quotes. He goes, grab, grab, snatch, snatch. Oh, my God. And then he said the House and the Senate Intelligence Committees will now look into that and report and provide a report back. There have been numerous reports from a variety of outlets over the last couple of months that seem to indicate different types of surveillance. Different outlets? Who? Alex Jones? InfoWars? Mark Levin? Breitbart? WikiLeaks? Christ on a rope. This is just... It's incredible. Next question. So what you're saying, go ahead, play it. So what you're saying.
So what you're saying is the president doesn't have an obligation to provide any
No, I'm not
evidence.
saying that at all. Not at all. What I'm saying is the request that was made from the House was to the Department of Justice. I think that that's an appropriate question to ask them. What I'm telling you is, from a White House perspective, there's no question that there have been an abundance of reports regarding surveillance and other type of activities that occurred during the 2016
From the
election.
Russians!
Us to believe that the president's only evidence are these
No,
reports.
that leads you to believe that. I'm saying to you, right, and I'm saying to you is that what we made clear on that Sunday was that the House and Senate Intelligence Committees have the means, the process, and the access to go in and look at the entirety of the evidence that's being presented to them and make a determination that they can report back to us.
Sean,
Yeah.
I
Right.
think, Sean, following up on Major's question, does the president feel he has an obligation, once the investigation is over, to release some sort of statement in response to whatever the findings are? That's my first question. I have a second one for you.
Well, let's get there first. I think to start to presume what the outcome is going to be before the House and the Senate look at all of the evidence and information and reports that are presented to them would be a bit presumptuous. So I think let's slow down a little, let them look at everything, and then
Welcome.
let them make some determination.
Goodbye.
Hello? What was that? Hello, goodbye? All right. Anyway, back to the question from the reporter. So what you're saying is the president doesn't have an obligation to provide any evidence. No. I'm not saying that at all. What Sean is trying to say is the request that was made from the House was to the Department of Justice. Well, what about the demands from sane people outside the government who said this is bullshit? What about what the Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, what about what what Comey, the head of the FBI, all these people said, in their way of putting it, this is bullshit. This idea that somehow Trump was spied on is bullshit. So what Sean is saying, what I'm telling you is, from a White House perspective, now think about that. From a White House perspective, but that means from Trump. Trump's insane. Trump's the one that started the bullshit. So from Trump's perspective, there's no question there's been an abundance of reports regarding surveillance, yada, 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 and other types of activities that occurred during the 2016 election. Yes, you asshole, that was by the Russians. That's what those reports were about. The Russians. But this is how a fascist regime works. You ask a question, they give you an answer that's a complete non sequitur. The press, the people in that press room do not have, I don't know, protocol, courage, guts, respect, I don't know what the word is, to stand up and say, Sean, you're a fucking liar, and turn around and walk out. I mean, wouldn't you? Come on, Truth Seeker. I have a lot of listeners who would do that immediately. And what Sphincter, I guess he doesn't understand, these reporters do not ask questions to which they don't already have the answer. These are bullshit questions. These are questions being used to justify, and no offense here to the reporters, to justify what they're doing in these half-assed press briefings. They know what the answers are. When the question is, and that leads us to believe that the president's only evidence are those reports, and Sphincter answers, no, that leads you to believe that. But the reporter already knows that's true. I know it's true. You know it's true. Everybody in America knows that Donald Trump is a liar, all the way down to the bottom of his orange feet. He is a liar. So all of this stuff, fancy newspeak, right? They're supposed to look at evidence. From where? The only, oh my God, in order for a congressional committee to look at evidence, the charge was made by Trump. The first place to look for the evidence is to Trump. Mr. President, show us your evidence so we can conduct an appropriate investigation. What do you have? He has nothing. Nothing. And then the next one, the question was, so to follow up on Major's point, this is a tweet from the president. Doesn't the president have an obligation, Spicer? And he does. And I think we made it very, question, to make the evidence clear, Spicer. Right. And we made it very clear that we expect the House and the Senate Intelligence Committee to do their job. That's not the question. I think there's a preponderance of reports that continues to come out about surveillance and action occurred during the 2016 election. He's repeating himself. Spicer goes on, but at this time, you can't say that we're going to shift it off to the House and Senate and then comment every day. That was the entire goal of asking them to look into this further. Question. But will the Department of Justice comply with the deadline today? The clock is ticking. The president instructed Spicer. I understand. My understanding is that they will, well, again, I would ask them what their intention is. And I believe there are certain things that they can and can't do in terms of classification and stuff. But I would leave it up to the Department of Justice to answer for the Department of Justice.
You want me to play it?
Jesus, God. Yeah, go ahead, play it.
I haven't played that one yet.
Follow up on Major's point, though. This is a tweet from the president. Doesn't the president have an obligation?
And he
to
does, and I
prove
think that
the
we've made it
make
very
the evidence clear?
right,
When-
and we've made it very clear that we expect the House and the Senate Intelligence Committees to do their job. I think there's a preponderance of reports that continues to come out about surveillance and actions that occurred during the 2016 election. Once they come up with their report, and it was asked earlier today, I think we can talk about the conclusions of that report. But at this time, you can't say that we're going to shift it off to the House and the Senate and then comment every day. That was the entire goal of asking them to look into this further.
But will the DOJ comply with this deadline today?
I understand. My understanding is that they will, but again, I would ask them what their intention is, and I believe there are certain things that they can and can't do in terms of classification and stuff. But I would leave it up to the Department of Justice to answer for the Department of Justice case.
Because if they say nothing, then that means Trump made up the whole pile of bat shit, right? But when Sphincter says, where is it? But at this time, you can't say that we're going to shift it off to the House and Senate and then comment every day. But the House and the Senate have nothing to do with it. All it takes is a simple question to the orange man. Show us your evidence. Do you have any?